The South African Zionist Federation has described as unfortunate what it calls the creeping in of political agendas into the University of Cape Town. It comes after the UCT Council adopted resolutions calling for the boycotting of all Israeli academic institutions and researchers affiliated with the Israeli Defense Force. It's also called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and humanitarian aid to be allowed into the area. The UCT Council has resolved that no UCT academic may enter into relations or continue relations with any research group or network that's affiliated to the IDF or the broader Israeli military establishment. It's calling for much needed humanitarian aid to be allowed to enter Gaza. The South African Zionist Federation says the resolutions do not bode well for scientific and academic exploration. It says the stance on banning academic collaboration is unconstitutional.
Senate resolved to call again for an immediate ceasefire, the passage of humanitarian aid and the return of all captives as contained in the Senate resolution of 17 November 2023. The Council condemned the destruction of the education sector in Gaza and the massive scale of killing of teachers and university staff in the current war. The Council urged the international community to ensure that the provision of humanitarian aid includes the restoration of the education sector in Gaza.
Right, let's get more on this. We're joined now by Executive Office Bearer at the South African Zionist Federation, Benji Shulman. A very good evening to you, Benji. Thank you so much for your time. You've expressed some discomfort about UCT's position. Talk to us about some of your concerns.
Thank you. Good evening, and good evening to all of the viewers. Yes, we are very concerned about this resolution. We believe it's a resolution in support of extremism. Notably, UCT allows extremist groups like Hamas to address students on the campus, but they're trying to prevent information flow and research between Israeli professors and South Africans. And we think that it's a violation of our constitutional right to academic freedom, and one that shouldn't be allowed at our universities, including the fact that the resolution doesn't condemn the attacks of October 7th, doesn't condemn the kidnapping, including of children from Israel, and it shows an extreme and concerning political and ideological bias at the university.
What position do you think the university should have now considered before these decisions were made?
I think the university must consider what's best for the university and make sure that its core constituencies, who are students, who are lecturers, who are people who are trying to produce knowledge, are best enabled to do that. Obviously, we welcome any calls for peace, for engagement, for bringing humanitarian aid, for returning of hostages, for condemning violence, and all of this could have been achieved, but to cut out the opportunities for South Africans to gain research networks all over the world with some of the best researchers in the world, which are Israelis in terms of water, in terms of agriculture, in terms of cybersecurity, entrepreneurship, all of these sorts of things, doesn't make any sense if UCT is going to be a serious institution that engages in exchange and understanding.
And perhaps expand on the impact of some of these decisions on the broader society and, of course, on students themselves, because we saw several of them being very vocal about this and putting out what their position is.
Yeah, I think that the impact on the students is actually very, very serious, as well as the impact on research. So, for example, if you take these enormous research things into key issues like, say, tuberculosis, those are often done in massive collaborations that take up 20 or 30 different countries. So Israel is often part of those sorts of research projects because it's an excellent place for research. And South Africa, or UCT in particular, is saying it doesn't want to be part of those research collaborations because Israel is involved. More disturbingly is the impact that this may have on student bursaries. So, for example, in Germany, boycotts like this have been condemned by their parliament, the Bundestag, as being anti-Semitic. And there's extreme reticence from Germany to engage in institutions that engage in these sorts of boycotts. So, and Germany provides through different means, corporate means, bursaries for South African students. So how many students are we potentially sacrificing so that UCT can back extremists? Because this might very well apply to the UK, might very well apply to the US. There are 38 states in the US that ban engagement with institutions that back boycotts. There's Canada. So we're very concerned as to what the effect might be on the futures of South African students from this resolution.
What about the fact that last month there were several reports on Palestine solidarity encampments at UCT and WITS? The University of the Western Cape also called for a ceasefire in a statement in April. It's also been reported that all universities in Gaza have been destroyed or damaged as a result of Israel's bombardment of Gaza, and that more than 90 university professors have been killed.
So the unfortunate thing about this war is that Hamas, which is an undemocratic, dictatorial and autocratic ruler of that enclave, makes use of civilian institutions to launch rockets. So once it starts to shoot from those entities, they no longer become safe places for professors or for students. And that is why we're having this appalling number of people being killed. But that has nothing to do with the IDF. I think that if we are serious as South Africans, we need to be calling for peace and engagement, but we don't need to be cutting off our abilities to work with the rest of the world because some professors prefer to support Hamas and its extremist activities.
So what about the consideration that this cutoff may be the right position for the moment? Is that something that you've considered, that looking at the impact and the ripple effect that this is having, that for now this may be the right decision and this stance is necessary to show the impact and how much support is needed to call this all to an end?
I think the fastest way to call this all to an end is for the hostages to be released, because if they were released, then there's no need for any further war. Now, the resolution does do that, which is very positive. The question is, does UCT care only about Palestinians and only about Gazans and only about Hamas, or does it care about South African students and the ability of our students to compete internationally? Because there are universities all over the world that are working in Israel that are now going to be benefiting from this institutional knowledge. There are universities in America that now no longer will be able to work with UCT. And I think as South Africans, what we should be bringing to the world is a spirit of negotiation and understanding and helping the two sides come together. But these sorts of punitive boycotts, the rest of the world sees this and they are going to react accordingly.
Very well. Perhaps let's leave it there for now. Executive Office Bearer at the South African Zionist Federation, Benji Shulman there, just questioning UCT's decision.